Hi, I'm Steve Carson and I want to show you the FOGRod. So this is the FOGRod, and this unit here is the control panel unit called the LIT, and together these make a wastewater level sensor for lift stations. So, how's the FOGRod work? What's it made of? Well, it's basically constructed out of PVC, and I'll zoom in on it a little bit later so people can see it close up. But basically, down the length of the FOGRod, we have 10 metal contacts offset from each other to minimize any issues with ragging. And each of these metal contacts is connected internally to one core of 10-core cable. And the cable is pulled up through the conduit, connected up to the control panel unit, and that control panel unit puts a few volts onto each terminal. So we have a few volts on each one of these metal contacts. And when a metal contact's underwater, then current will flow through the wastewater, through the concrete and steel of the wet well, back into the control panel ground, and back into the LIT, completing the circuit. And when a metal contact's in fresh air is an insulator, no current will flow. So extremely simple, just like turning on a light bulb, but the water's the light switch. Nice advantage of conductivity: when the level drops off the bottom of the FOGRod, then you've got a fresh air gap. No way to get a false on signal once the level's dropped off the bottom of the rod. So that's the FOGRod. It's got no moving parts, it's got no electronics, it's got no sensors, so it's very tough. And we give it a 10-year warranty.
It might even slip out of their hands a couple times during the installation process. We designed the FOGRod to be able to take this type of abuse so a customer doesn't have to worry about a damaged, cracked FOGRod.
So, extremely tough device, 10-year warranty in wastewater. Now, this is the 5-foot FOGRod. These contacts are 6 inches apart. We've got a longer FOGRod, which is 7.5 foot. The contacts are 9 inches apart. And we can make longer FOGRods just by putting one FOGRod above the other. So that's how we do 10, 15 foot FOGRods. Now, how do we install it? Well, it hangs down in the bottom of the wet well from its own cable. Just hangs freely. So you don't need to go down into the wet well. You'll install the mounting bracket that I'll mention in a second at the top of the wet well, and this is just suspended from the bracket. So you'll lower this down in the wet well. So this bottom contact is where you want the pumps to stop. That's your off point, like your off float. And it just hangs there freely. So we arrive at site, we open up the hatch, and we look for a spot to install it. And what we're looking for is a place near the inflow, in the turbulent part of the wet well, where the grease is all broken up. We don't want to put it where the floats were. We need to put those in a place where they're protected. This doesn't need to be protected. It can bang into walls. It's not going to damage it. So, the FOGRod comes with this mounting bracket, and you can see in the mounting bracket we have a squeegee, or a wiper. That's for cleaning off the rod. So, we'll find a spot under the hatch, under the lid, where we can bolt that into the concrete and steel. Comes with some anchors, comes with a cable tie and an S-hook. We'll lower the rod down into the wet well, right the way down, and then we'll tie off the cable with the cable tie, and we'll hang it from the S-hook, and then the S-hook will just be suspended from this bracket. So, very simple. When we want to clean the rod, that's real easy too, much easier than floats. All we've got to do is just reach down, pull the cable off the S-hook, and then slide the cable through the slot in the bracket, and then we pull it up through the squeegee. It's nice and tight. It cleans off the contacts. So, then we'll pull the cable through the conduit and wire it into the LIT. And now we're going to zoom in on the LIT, and I'm going to show you that in just a little bit of detail. So now we've zoomed in on the LIT, and I'm just going to briefly explain it in the first part of this video. So the unit itself is in a demo case, so we can simulate issues and problems. It's powered off 12 or 24 volts DC, We have a ground connection, which is the current return, so that's wired to the control panel ground. The FOGRod cable comes in through the bottom, colour-coded wires into colour-coded terminals, and we'll wire 4 of these relays. Here's an example installation. You can see that relay 1, relay 4, relay 6 and relay 8 are wired for off, lead, lag and alarm, and they're just wired into the 4 spots where the 4 floats were wired before. That's all we had to do to replace floats. There's an analog output, so we can use it to replace a transducer, and we can also use this for telemetry for remote level. So that's a brief summary of the FOGRod. Thanks very much for watching. If you want to stick around, I will go into a little bit more detail. Questions that people usually ask, like how do we deal with grease buildup, what happens when there's problems, how do we troubleshoot the thing, and I'll be explaining those in some more detail. But if you want to give FOGRod a try, we do offer free trials and try-and-buys for municipals. Just give us a call, 406 545 3023. Thanks very much for watching. Okay, well thanks for staying around. We're going to zoom back in on the LIT, and we're going to cover a little bit more about how it deals with problems, how we deal with grease buildup on the FOGRod. So let me just show the accessories. We've got, this is the bracket up close, powder coated aluminum and a hard polyurethane wiper. So it's got a nice hard edge on it, and that cleans off the FOGRod real well. Comes with anchors. You can use your own if those aren't suitable, and an S-hook and a cable tie. That's the bracket. Now the FOGRod contacts that I mentioned, just to see them up close. So just one metal stud, and that's a very high grade stainless steel, AL6XN. That's not going to corrode. It's much tougher than 316. These bands are just so you can locate when you're looking down into the wet well where the metal contacts live. So that's the up close on the FOGRod. And the power supply. You can use any power supply. This is just one we supply, 12 or 24 volts, 10 watts. You only need 4 watts to power the LIT. Nice thing about it is it's slim and DIN rail mounted and very reliable. On the left side of this demo case, we've got some switches that let us simulate level and level problems. And then these 10 level relays and 2 fault relays are shown by these lights here, so we can see what's going on. As I mentioned, normally you just have 4 of these relays wired into the spots where your floats have been wired. We've wired up all 10, so we can see how we deal with some of the issues. As we increase level in the well and cover a contact, we get a visual indication and we turn on a level relay. Each one of these relays is just like a float. So we've got 10 floats, 6 inches apart or 9 inches apart. Now, let's say lead start was number 5, so we've wired relay 5 into our starter. This light's going to show us whether or not we've turned on the lead pump or not. So we get to contact number 5. It's got really bad grease buildup and it's insulated the contact. What happens? Well, the level carries on rising, and it rises up to obviously the contact above. And when that happens, we detect level at contact 6. Notice how we've turned on all the level relays, including relay number 5. So we've started our lead pump. We've just started a bit higher. So we've got a backup. It's like a backup float, but without the headache. And we're flashing to show that contact 5 is a problem. We've got a nice visual alarm, wiring or contact fault, and we've turned on a fault relay. This fault relay here, shown by this light. So we could have that wired to telemetry, and you'd know there's a maintenance issue at site. But it's not an emergency, because your lead pump is still going to start. Let's say you ignore it, nobody does anything, and days, weeks, however long it's taking for this grease to gradually build up on the rod and insulate a contact, then what's going to happen is one day the 60% point's not going to work and the level's going to rise up to the contact above, and when it does, same issue, still turns on the lead pump. So you've got lots of backups on your rod. You're always going to start your pump. It's like a fail-safe start. And remember I mentioned at the beginning that when the level drops off the bottom of the FOGRod, you're always going to have a fresh air gap, and so you're always going to stop the pumps. So we've got reliable start and we've got reliable stop. Now there's another problem that occurs with conductivity rod, and that is ragging. So let's say we get a rag wrapped around lots of contacts and shorts them out. Then what's going to happen is the level gets to the bottom of the rag and it's going to think the level's actually all the way up to the top of the rag. You notice on the FOGRod that we had put the contacts offset from each other to minimize that issue, but it can still happen. We're just trying to minimize the problem. We can't eliminate it, but we can eliminate it with the LIT. And what we're going to do is, first of all, very important in normal operation, you put this clean FOGRod alert dip switch into the on position. So it's going to detect this problem. You're outside and you see that's off. Remember, before you leave, put it into on. Now, let's say the level gets to 20%, and when it does, it actually shorts all the way up the rod because of this rag, or because of a bad grease buildup. Big grease buildups can act like wet rags and hold water inside and do the same job as a wet rag. So we get to 20%, but it shorts all the way up to 50%. Notice how we've only turned on the 20% relay and we've only turned on the 20% light. There's a 3-minute delay in the unit . With this demo case, it's like 20 seconds, just so you don't have to sit and wait for 3 minutes. And we can see at the end of the time period, we do turn on the level relays, and we latch this alarm and we turn on a fault relay. So we've got a visual indication and we've got a fault relay that's closed. And this alarm is latched. So if we empty the well, the alarm's still there. That's just so you don't miss it. So we've looked at the off is reliable, the start is reliable, and we can't short cycle. This 3-minute delay is going to mean that with 2 pumps working in your wet well, you've got a maximum, even under the worst case conditions, of 10 starts per pump per hour. So you've got a very reliable level control system here. Last thing that we look at with the LIT is we look for cable faults. So we can detect cable open circuit and we can detect cable short circuit, and there's a cable fault relay, so you can wire that to telemetry. It's once in a blue moon, but obviously you want to detect for it. Somebody goes to site, doesn't damage the cable, rodents chew away on cables, you want to know when there's a problem. And the last question people usually ask is, well, how do we tell whether the LIT is okay? Everything electronic ultimately fails. It's a very reliable unit, but everything will ultimately fail. It might take 20 years, but you want to know about it when it does. So 2 simple ways. The first way, recommended, use a high-level float as a backup. So let's say we've wired relay 9 into our alarm light. You'll also wire that backup float. You'll have it above the top of the FOGRod. Now there's another way that you can also tell if the unit's failed or if power's failed to the unit, and it's very simple as well. All we've got to do is put the fault relays into normally closed. So basically the relays are closed when everything's good. You just tell your telemetry system this means good. And now if we lose power to the unit, here's what happens. The relays spring open. Now when I put power back into the unit, you'll see how we can tell the software version. All the lights come on, and then 1.7. And that's how you tell that you have, that's how you tell what your software version is, by cycling power. So that's pretty much it on the overview of the LIT. There's no software that you have to program. There's no configuration. The only configuration of the unit is with these dip switches and with this conductivity threshold, which in normal operation is just left on default. You don't need to tune it. It's only there for special applications, liquids that are much less conductive than wastewater. That's the only reason we have it. And so you can see, very simple device, Comes with a FOGRod, and please give one a try.